that he had to lean against the wall. Lagorda gave me an account of her first meeting with the members of Don Juan's party. Oh boy, all right, her version differed only in content. The form was the same. I can't get, this is going to be in two parts. I can't, just isn't going to work. Her version differed only in content. The form was the same. The warriors were perhaps a bit more violent with her, but she had understood this as their attempt to shake her out of her slumber, and also a natural reaction to what she considered her ugly personality. As we reviewed Don Juan's world, we realized that it was a replica of his benefactor's world. It could not be seen as consisting of either groups or household. There was a group of 4 independent pairs of apparent sisters who worked and lived together. Another group of 3 men who were Don Juan's age and were very close to him. A team of 2 somewhat younger men, the couriers Amelito and Juan Tuma, and finally a team of 2 younger southerly women who seemed to be related to each other, Martha and Teresa. At other times, it could be seen as consisting of 4 separate households located quite far from one another in different areas of Mexico. One was made up of the two westerly women, Zuleika and Zolia, Silvio Manuel and the courier Martha. The next was composed of southerly women, Celia and Delia, Don Juan's courier, Amelito and the courier Teresa. Another household was formed by the easterly women, Carmela and her Melinda, Vicente and the courier Juan Tuma, and the last of the northerly women, Melidia and Florinda and Don Gennaro. According to Don Juan, his world did not have the harmony and balance of his benefactors. The only 2 women who thoroughly balanced one another, who looked like identical twins, were the northerly sisters, Melidia and Florinda. Melidia once told me in a casual conversation that they were so alike that they even had the same blood type. For me, one of the most pleasant surprises of our interaction was the transformation of Zuleika and Zolia, who had been so abhorrent. They turned out to be, as Don Juan had said, the most sober and dutiful warriors imaginable. I could not believe my eyes when I saw them again. Their mad spell had passed, and now they looked like 2 well-dressed Mexican ladies, tall, dark, and muscular, with brilliant dark eyes like pieces of shiny black obsidian, black stone there. They laughed and joked with me about what had happened the night of our first meeting, as if someone else and not they had been involved in it. I could easily understand Don Juan's turmoil with the westerly warriors of his benefactor's party. It was impossible for me to accept that Zuleika and Zolia could ever return in such an obnoxious, nauseating creatures as I had first encountered. I was to witness their metamorphosis many times, yet I was never again able to judge them as harshly as I had on our first encounter. More than anything else, their outrages made me feel sad. But the biggest surprise to me was Silvio Manuel. In the darkness of our first meeting, I had imagined him to be an imposing man, an overpowering giant. In fact, he was tiny, but not small-boned. His body was like the body of a jockey, small yet perfectly proportioned. He looked to me as if he might be a gymnast. His physical control was so remarkable that he could puff himself up like a toad to nearly twice his size by contracting all the muscles of his body. He used to give an astounding demonstration of how he could dislodge his joints and put them back together again without overt signs of pain. Looking at Silvio Manuel, I always experienced a deep, unfamiliar feeling of fright. To me, he seemed like a visitor from another time. He was pale dark, like a bronze statue. His features were sharp. His aquiline nose, full lips, and widely separated, slanted eyes made him look like a stylized figure of a Mayan fresco. He was friendly and warm during the daytime, but as soon as twilight set in, he would become unfathomable. His voice would change. He would sit in a dark corner and let the darkness swallow him. And all that was visible of him was his left eye, which remained open and acquired a strange shine, reminiscent of the eyes of a feline. Gee, that's what I do. A secondary issue that came up in the course of our interaction with Don Juan's warriors was the subject of controlled folly. Don Juan gave me a succinct explanation once when he was discussing the two categories into which all the women warriors were mandatorily divided, dreamers and stalkers. He said that all members of his party did dreaming and stalking as part of their daily lives, but the women who made up the planet of the dreamers and the planet of the stalkers were the foremost authorities of their respective activities. The stalkers are the ones who take the brunt of the daily world. They are the business managers, the ones who deal with people. Everything that has to do with the world of ordinary affairs goes through them. The stalkers are practitioners of controlled folly, just as the dreamers are practitioners of dreaming. In other words, controlled folly is the basis for stalking, as dreams are the basis for dreaming. Don Juan said that, generally speaking, a warrior's greatest accomplishment in the second attention is dreaming, and in the first attention, his greatest accomplishment is stalking. I had misunderstood what Don Juan's warriors were doing to me in our first meetings. I took their actions as instances of trickery that would still be my impression today had it not been for the idea of controlled folly. Don Juan said that their actions with me had been masterful lessons in stalking. He told me that the art of stalking was what his benefactor had taught him before anything else. In order to survive among his benefactor's warriors, he had had to learn that art quickly. In my case, he said, since I did not have to contend by myself with his warriors, I had to learn dreaming first. When the time was right, Florinda would step out to guide me into the complexities of stalking. No one else could deliberately talk to me about it. They could only give me direct demonstrations as they had already done in our first meetings. Don Gennaro explained to me at great length that Florinda was one of the foremost practitioners of stalking, because she had trained in every intricacy of it by his benefactor and his 4 female warriors who were stalkers. Florinda was the first female warrior to come into Don Juan's world, and because of that, she was to be my personal guide, not only in the art of stalking, but also in the mystery of the third attention, if I ever got there. Don Juan did not elaborate on this. He said I would have to wait until I was ready, first to learn stalking and then to enter into the third attention. Don Juan said that his benefactor had taken extra time and care with him and his warriors in everything that pertained to their mastering the art of stalking. He used complex ploys to create an appropriate context for a counterpoint between the dictums of the rule and the behavior of warriors in the daily world as they interacted with people. He believed that was the way to convince them that, in the absence of self-importance, a warrior's only way of dealing with the social milieu is in terms of controlled folly. In the course of working out his ploys, Don Juan's benefactor would pit the actions of people and the actions of warrior against the commands of the rule, and then would sit back and let the natural drama unfold itself. The folly of the people would take the lead for a while and drag the warriors into it, as seems to be the natural course, only to be vanquished in the end by the more encompassing designs of the rule. Don Juan told us that at first he resented his benefactor's control over the players. He even told him that to his face. His benefactor was not fazed. He argued that his control was merely an illusion created by the eagle. He was only an impeccable warrior, and his actions were a humble attempt to mirror the eagle. Don Juan said that the force with which his benefactor carried out his designs originated from his knowledge that the eagle is real and final, and that what people do is utter folly. The two together gave rise to controlled folly, which Don Juan's benefactor described as the only bridge between the folly of people and the finality of the eagle's dictums. End of chapter. And if you don't hear end of chapter, it's not the end of chapter. I'll put that in a little preface thing. So, all right, thanks.